Welcome to Prâna, the life-giving force, selections from the Upanishads, an ancient Hindu text, part 1 of 2 on words of wisdom. Hinduism is believed to be one of the world's oldest living religions, with origins tracing back to the ancient Vedic civilization in India. The earliest Hindu spiritual text, the Rig Veda, was compiled approximately between 1500 BCE and 1200 BCE. Other sacred Hindu scriptures include the Upanishads, among others. Of all the Vedic literature, the Upanishads are known for their in-depth exploration of concepts that are at the spiritual core of Hinduism. The teachings in the Upanishads are generally presented as a dialogue between teacher and disciple. Many of these conversations elaborate on the spiritual seeker's path to the highest inner truth. Included in the discussions are concepts like Atman, generally defined as the higher self or the soul, and Brahman, the supreme Lord who represents absolute truth. The oneness of soul and God is also key to Vedic teachings and leads to further discussions about the unity of all life and the unchanging nature of truth. Prâna Upanishad, third question. Then Kaushalya Asvalayana asked, Sir, from where is that prana, spirit or life force born? How does it come into this body? And how does it abide after it has divided itself? How does it go out? How does it support what is without and how what is within? He replied, You ask questions more difficult, but you are very fond of Brahman. Therefore, I shall tell it to you. This prana, spirit or life force is born of the self. Like the shadow thrown on a man, this prana or life force is spread out over it or the Brahman. By the work of the mind does it come into this body. As a king commands officials, saying to them, Rule these villages or those, so does that prana or spirit dispose the other pranas, each for their separate work. The apana or the down-breathing in the organs of excretion and generation, the prana himself dwells in eye and ear, passing through mouth and nose. In the middle is the samana or the unbreathing. It carries what has been sacrificed as food equally over the body, and the 7 lights proceed from it. The self is in the heart. There are 101 arteries, and in each of them there are 100 smaller veins. For each of these branches there are 72,000. In these, the vyana or the back-breathing moves. Through one of them, the udana or the out-breathing leads us upwards to the good world by good work, to the bad world by bad work, to the world of men by both. The sun rises as the external prana, for it assists the prana in the eye. The deity that exists in the earth is there in support of man's apana or down-breathing. The ether between sun and earth is the samana or on-breathing. The air is vyana or back-breathing. Light is the udana or out-breathing, and therefore he whose light has gone out comes to a new birth with his senses absorbed in the mind. Whatever his thought at the time of death, with that he goes back to prana, and the prana, united with light, together with the self or the jivatma, leads unto the world as deserved. He who thus knowing knows prana, his offspring, does not perish, and he becomes immortal. Thus says the sloka, He who has known the origin, the entry, the place, the fivefold distribution, and the internal state of the prana obtains immortality. Yes, obtains immortality. Fourth question. Then Shauryayanin Gargya asked, Sir, what are they that sleep in this man, and what are they that are awake in him? What power or deva is it that sees dreams? Whose is the happiness? On what do all these depend? He replied, O Gargya, as all the rays of the sun when it sets are gathered up in that disk of light, and as they, when the sun rises again and again, come forth, so is all this, or all the senses, gathered up in the highest faculty, or deva, the mind. Therefore, at that time, that man does not hear, see, smell, taste, touch. He does not speak, he does not take, does not enjoy, does not evacuate, does not move about. He sleeps. That is what people say. The fires of the pranas are, as it were, awake in that town or the body. The apana or the down breathing is the garhapatya fire, the vyana or the back breathing, the anvaharyapakana fire, and because it is taken out of a garhyapatya fire, which is fire for taking out, therefore the prana is the ahavanya fire. Now the apna or the down breathing is identified with the garhapatya fire, no reason being given except afterward, when it is said that the prana is the ahavanya fire, being taken out of the garhapatya, here called pranayana, in the same manner as the prana proceeds in sleep from the apna. The vyana or the back breathing is identified with the dakshinagni, the southern fire, because it issues from the heart through an aperture on the right. Because it carries equally these two oblations, the outbreathing and the inbreathing, the samana or the on-breathing is he, the Hotri priest. The mind is the sacrificer, the udana or the outbreathing is the reward of the sacrifice, and it leads the sacrificer every day in deep sleep to Brahman. There that the invisible power, the mind, enjoys in sleep greatness. What has been seen, he sees again. What has been heard, he hears again. What has been enjoyed in different countries and quarters, he enjoys again. What has been seen and not seen, heard and not heard, enjoyed and not enjoyed, he sees it all. He, being all, sees. And when he is overpowered by light, then that, the invisible power, sees no dreams, and at that time that happiness arises in his body. Prâna Upanishad, 4th question. O friend, as birds go to a tree to roost, thus all this rests in the highest Atman or highest self. The earth and its subtle elements, the water and its subtle elements, the light and its subtle elements, the air and its subtle elements, the ether and its subtle elements, the eye and what can be seen, the ear and what can be heard, the nose and what can be smelled, the taste and what can be tasted, the skin and what can be touched, the voice and what can be spoken, the hands and what can be grasped, the feet and what can be walked, the mind and what can be perceived, intellect or buddhi and what can be conceived, personality and what can be personified, thought and what can be thought, light and what can be lighted up, the prana and what is to be supported by it. For he it is who sees, hears, smells, tastes, perceives, conceives, acts, he whose essence is knowledge, the person, and he dwells in the highest, indestructible self. He who knows that indestructible being obtains what is the highest and indestructible, he without a shadow, without a body, without color, bright, yes, O friend, he who knows it becomes all-knowing, becomes all. On this, there is this sloka. He, O friend, who knows that indestructible being wherein the true knower, the vital spirits, pranas, together with all the powers, deva, and the elements rest, he, being all-knowing, has penetrated all. 5th question. Then Savya Satyakama asked him, Sir, if someone among men should meditate here until death on the syllable Om, what would he obtain by it? He replied, O Satyakama, The syllable Om, is the highest and also the other Brahman. Therefore, he who knows it arrives by the same means at one of the two. If he meditates on one mantra, the A, then enlightened by that only, he arrives quickly at the earth. The Rig verses led him to the world of men, and being endowed there with penance, abstinence and faith, he enjoys greatness. If he meditates with two mantras, A plus U, he arrives at the Manas and is led up by the Yagus verses to the sky, to the Soma world. Having enjoyed greatness in the Soma world, he returns again. Again, he who meditates with this syllable Aum of three mantras on the highest person, he comes to light and to the sun. And as a snake is freed from its skin, so is he freed from evil. He is led up by the Saman verses to the Brahma world. And from him, full of life, Hiranyagarbha, the lord of Satyaloka, he learns to see the all-pervading, the highest person, and there are these two slokas. The three mantras A plus U plus M, if employed separate and only joined one to another, are mortal, but in acts external, internal or intermediate, if well performed, the sage trembles not. Through the Rig verses, he arrives at this world, through the Yagus verses at the sky, through the Saman verses at that which the poets teach, he arrives at this by means of the Onkara. The wise arrives at that which is at rest, free from decay, from death, from fear, the highest. Sixth question. Then Sukesa's Bharadvaja asked him, saying, Sir, Hiranyanava, the prince of Kosala, came to me and asked this question. Do you know the person of 16 parts, O Bharadvaja? I said to the prince, I do not know him. If I knew him, how should I not tell you? Surely, he who speaks what is untrue withers away to the very root. Therefore, I will not say what is untrue. Then he mounted his chariot and went away silently. Now I ask you, where is that person? He replied, Friend, that person is here within the body, he in whom these 16 parts arise. He reflected, What is it by whose departure I shall depart, and by whose staying I shall stay? He sent forth or created Prâna or spirit, from Prâna Shraddha or faith, ether, air, light, water, earth, sense, mind, food. From food came vigor, penance, hymns, sacrifice, the worlds, and in the worlds the name also. As these flowing rivers that go towards the ocean, when they have reached the ocean, sink into it, their name and form are broken, and people speak of the ocean only. Exactly thus, these 16 parts of the spectator that go towards the person, Purusa or the soul, when they have reached the person, sink into him, their name and form are broken, and people speak of the person only, and he becomes without parts and immortal. On this, there is this verse. That person who is to be known, he in whom these parts rest, like spokes in the nave of a wheel, you know him, lest death should hurt you. Then he, Pipalada, said to them, So far do I know this highest Brahman, there is nothing higher than it. They praised him, said, You indeed are our father, you who carry us from our ignorance to the other shore. Adoration to the highest rishis. Adoration to the highest rishis. Tat Sat, Hari Om. For more information, please visit Internet Sacred Text Archive or sacred-texts.com.
Vegan. Because we respect the animal people protection law we made.
Considerate viewers, it has been a joy that you could join us today for Words of Wisdom.